Welcome everybody to this amazing workshop. I know we've had like quite a few workshops over the last couple months or so, and we have another really great one with one of my dear friends, Brandon from my Into Games brethren. It feels so good to have Brandon here with us today to talk to you about how to get into the video games industry. And Into Games is an organization that really knows its stuff about getting people into games. So, like, I hope you all are ready. I hope you all got my email about your LinkedIn profile and your Google Drive as well. Just in case if you don't have it, don't worry. It's okay. But yeah, I'm going to let Brandon take it away. And yeah, hope you all have a really good time. Take it away, Brandon.
Well, thanks, Laura. Much appreciated. Hello, everybody. I can't see everybody's faces. There's maybe a few friendly faces, folks that we know from things we've done before. 21, I don't know. Hello. Hope you're all well on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. Thursday. Geez. Really looking forward to this. I know this is your guys' personal time. I really want to try and make this as practical and as useful as possible for you guys. There's a lot of information that gets thrown about all the things that you need to do to get into the games industry, of which there are many things. But hopefully that you'll come out of this with some real practical tools and things that you can actually use right away, rather than just like lots of things where you have to worry about where you're going to find the time to do it all. So hopefully this hour and a half will be really useful and practical to you guys. As Lauren said, like, if you guys have a LinkedIn profile, if you could get it open in a tab just now, and we're going to work along together to basically boost and bolster your LinkedIn profile. That would be really useful. Is there anyone just quickly who doesn't have a LinkedIn profile? Just drop a message in the thing, just so I have an idea if there's anyone who doesn't have it or have one open. Okay, great. I'm guessing that means everybody has one. That's really good. So yeah, if you could have your profile just open up in a separate tab, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to try and keep the slides to an absolute minimum where I can, and just try and make this as really practical and useful as possible. If I'm going too fast, if people are missing things I'm saying, please just shout. I might not see the chat, but if Lauren, maybe you see it, or just feel free to unmute, guys, and just say, could you just go back to that, please? This is supposed to be kind of us working together, so don't feel like you need to just kind of listen in silence to me. We're going to be working on this together. So I guess I shall get started now. I've got a big Into Games logo up there, and guys hopefully know already who we are. If not, have a look up. I'm Brandon. I work at Into Games, and essentially we're the UK's non-profit for skills and careers development in games, and we really exist to help folks get into the games industry. Our role as an organization is to build a fair and inclusive pathway into games. So that's the work that we do. I'll keep the introduction short and sweet because it's not what you're here for. You guys will be aware of this already. Getting into games industries, it's not easy. It's a highly competitive, highly educated industry, and the number of people who want a job at entry level is much higher than the number of entry level roles available. We're doing lots of work to try and change that, but as I'm sure you guys are aware, it's a very competitive market out there at entry level, and there's a lot of things that you need to do, and a lot of really great people, of which you guys are part of that group. But there's some few easy kind of tips and tricks and things that you can do to make that journey less hard, and that's kind of some of the things that we're going to focus on today. There's someone who's typing. Amazing. That's really great to hear that you're writing notes, but if you wouldn't mind muting, sorry, just because I can hear it really loud. And just to let everyone know that I'll be sharing all of this stuff with you afterwards, the deck, the links, and the guide for setting up your LinkedIn profile and your CV. So you'll get all of this afterwards. I'm just going to, there's 4 people in the waiting room, so I'm just going to let those guys in. So how do we make this journey less hard? This is a really good way to just think about how your journey into the games industry and the things that you should be doing and thinking about whilst you're working on that journey. This kind of cycle is a really good cycle to get yourselves into, not only just for your own kind of creative energies and for building and developing your own skills and building a community and a network of people, but for giving yourself the best chances of getting into the industry. So There's 4 key things here. The first one of those is build and update your job profile, which I'll talk a little bit more about. The key major part of this workshop will be about that section. Flex your creative muscles and develop new skills, a really, really important stage. Share that work with others, share it in communities, share it online, share it with friends, share it in person, and get feedback and make improvements. If you can basically work through this cycle, then you're going to be improving your learnings all the time, building, developing new skills, gaining larger networks, building communities of people, creating a really interesting and creative and well-known job profile, and give yourself the best chances of getting into the games industry. So if you think of this cycle, it's a really, really good way to kind of build your skills and work towards that first job in games. So as I said, the first part is the part we're going to be kind of focusing mostly on today. This is probably the key part, because this is the thing that's ultimately going to get you into an interview stage. This is the thing that an employer is going to look at and go, okay, we want to speak to this person more. And the idea being that throughout this whole stage, you're applying for jobs. Now, this, I'm sure, seems like a lot of work. So I do apologize, guys, as I know many of you probably have other full-time jobs, other commitments, maybe children, caring responsibilities to think about. And I really want to make sure that this workshop's practical so that you can make the most of this hour and a half. But I guess just to put it up front that there will be stuff that you'll need to do in your own time and work quite hard on to give yourself the best chances. I'm certain that everybody here is very talented and deserves a job in games, but there's a lot of stuff that you have to do to make sure that employers can see that. So if you think about this cycle is a really good way to think about how best to kind of get yourself in front of employers in a meaningful way. So first off, build, update your job profile. This is the thing that we're going to be focusing on mostly. And what do I mean by your job profile? That's your CV and your LinkedIn. The two really are interchangeable, and you'll see why in a second. Your cover letter and your portfolio. Your demo reel, however you want to see it. This is your kind of like professional body of work that you share to employers to let them see what it is that you can do beyond just your skills and abilities and words. So today we're going to do 3 main things. First, we're going to update our CVs and LinkedIn's, and you'll get feedback live from your peers on changes and edits and things that you can make from that. So number one thing you'll come out of at the end of this is hopefully a brand new CV. The second of those is we're going to explore quick tips around portfolios and cover letters. The idea being that you should also come out of this with a brand new cover letter for a job that you want to apply for. And finally, we're going to share some resources, some tools, some job hunting tricks that cover those other 3 stages of the job hunting kind of cycle. Those will be in less detail because they're kind of bespoke depending on what role you're going to apply for. And we've only got an hour and a half, guys. So I'm going to focus on what I think is probably the most important part to get started with the rest of those things. First off, just some general kind of quick advice about those things. The first one is just take it seriously, guys. Obviously, like, have fun whilst you're doing it. If you can find ways to do that, and game making is fun, so I'm certain that you will be able to, but just take it seriously. These are real job applications that we have seen from people. This person put their games development CV on a picture of a piece of bread, and put kind of like Comic Sans. I know I've done Comic Sans text as a bit of a joke, but I'm not applying for a job. And put Comic Sans text of the things that they've done and kind of wrote it in funny language. And another person here has put in a very, very kind of like basic jokey way for applying for a job at Media Molecule. So I would just say, just take it seriously. Have fun while you're doing it and let your personality show through. But like, if you really want to apply for a job, then just take that kind of process as seriously as you can, because it's a professional thing. Next up this is a really key thing to think about when you're building your CV and your cover letter. So your CV is like instructions. Think of your CV as an instruction guide to building a Billy bookcase from IKEA. It's light on words, it's simple, it's accessible, it's easy for everybody to read and understand, no matter what background you come from. It says exactly the parts that you need to be able to build the thing, and it says exactly what it does on the tin. It doesn't have to be boring, as this one isn't. It just has to be accessible, and it has to show all of the most important parts and only the most important parts. So this is what your CV is. Your CV is the instruction guide. It tells the person looking at it exactly what they need to know, and in the best format possible, and in the quickest way possible as well. One of the things IKEA does really well is making their instruction guides very simple and on one page. There's no superfluous language. There's no additional diagrams that don't need to be there. It can be read in absolutely any language. It's just created very, very well. So think about your CV like this. Your cover letter, sorry, I skipped ahead there, is a different story. So your cover letter, and this is the real description of the Billy bookcase on IKEA. Once upon a time, a little bookcase became a loved classic around the world. And like most things small, it grew. Billy is a modern bookcase, now more customizable and used in many more ways than just for books. Billy can be as small and as humble or as big and proud as you want it to be. Now, that's a pretty lovely description for what is essentially a flat pack bookcase. Not saying you guys are flat pack bookcases, but what I am saying is that this cover letter or this description of this bookcase is not lying. It's saying what it is. It's just telling the story in a little bit more of a romantic way to make somebody want to buy it. So these two things are both talking about the exact same thing, but they're just doing it in different ways. And when those two things come together, then you've got something really interesting. So think of your CV like an instruction guide, and think of your cover letter like a romantic description of the thing that you're building. Just if you think of it in this way, it's a really, really useful way to understand what information needs to be in which ones. So I don't know what I've done there. Oh, I've clicked onto the IKEA bookcase website. That was not useful. Sorry, guys. So next up, we're going to look at CVs first. The reason that I said to everybody to have their LinkedIn profiles ready and open is because we're going to use LinkedIn to be able to create your CV. The reason why is because LinkedIn is a really, really useful tool for building CVs, and most people don't see it that way. Not only is it your open public job profile, but it also has a tool to be able to create a document CV that's really, really useful. So first off, CVs, I've talked about what they should be. Now I'm just going to show you very quickly some really good examples, and I'll share these with you, and the people who shared them have been really kind enough to share these with me and share them with you guys as well. Both of these people I recommend connecting with and checking out. So and just thanking them for sharing this information. So I'm just going to pop these open, and maybe it will dispel a couple of myths and also probably prove some too. Sarah Machado is now the head, a senior recruiter at Sumo, and this is her CV before she started working for them. And as you can see, it's accessible, it's easy to read, it has only the most important information on it. Everything that you can see that's important is right at the top. And it has all the information that an employer needs. And as you see, it's one page, guys. It's literally one page. And I'm sure that her one that includes Sumo is also one page. This is a really good example of a CV, a really, really top example. This is exactly how your guys' CV should look. You've got approximately around 4 seconds for a recruiter to get interested in your CV. And that's not because they don't care, it's because they're reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these, especially for entry-level roles. This says all the information that somebody needs to know. A recruiter can look at this and they can find out immediately whether or not this person's going to be good for the job or not. So this is a really, really good example. The second one here is to show you kind of a developer CV. Is Jonathan Wilson. He's a senior game and level designer. He's currently working at Mafia. And again, it says everything that it needs to have on it. It's got its contact details, LinkedIn, portfolio right at the top, really easily accessible via links. It's got a profile about himself, and it's got all of his most important industry experience. His is 2 pages, but Jonathan has been in the industry for over 10 years and has worked as a freelancer and also in major studios. His is allowed to be 2 pages. If you guys are looking for your first job in the games industry, you don't need it to be this long. Jonathan is a senior person in the industry who's worked in multiple different studios, is applying for high profile jobs, and does loads of stuff outside of his job that's really relevant to the work that he does. So Jonathan's is allowed to be 2 pages. This is a really good example of a CV as well. And as I said, both these guys have agreed to share these with you. So I can share them afterwards and you can use them. And I do recommend connecting with both of them. Both of them are Sarah especially gives loads and loads of free advice and articles around how you can get into the games industry. And some of the stuff I'm using in this has been based off of content that she has put out there. So are there any questions about this so far? Is everyone kind of following along? Just before I jump into the next stage, feel free to just pop something in the chat if you want anything clarified, or just make sure you can hear me and everything instead. Yeah, really good question. I'll answer that one just at the end. That's really great. So I'll come back to that one at the end just to keep us kind of on track, but that's a really, really great question. The short answer is yes. I'll come to the colors in a CV. These are really good. So I'll just come to these ones at the end. Thank you, Lauren, much appreciated. I'll come to these ones at the end. Great questions though, guys. That's really good to hear. There's lots. So on to LinkedIn. So if you guys have a LinkedIn page, it sounds like everybody does. I would just right now, if you could get your LinkedIn profile open. And we're going to go through it. So it's kind of thing with my info on is annoying me. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. So your LinkedIn profile is your public job profile. This is not just for you to have information or for your connections to see information about who you are and what you've done, for you to be able to find out information about jobs and employers and careers information. It's your CV. And every single recruitment company in the UK games industry is using LinkedIn as a way to find people to hire them. So if you're serious about getting a job in the games industry, a LinkedIn profile is really, really important. It has so many useful functions in terms of employability and career support that are really worthwhile making use of. But it sounds like everybody has one. So what we're going to do, the first stage, is we're going to first off do some really quick and simple tips to basically make sure that your LinkedIn profile gets seen more and is more ready for a recruiter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to utilize our LinkedIn profile to build out our CV. So this is my LinkedIn profile. As you can see, this workshop actually helped me do a little bit of spring cleaning on mine. Mine didn't look as good as this before. So apologies, I maybe should have done that live, but I wanted to make sure that you could see kind of how one should look, how one of these should look. So first off, just some really, really quick things that you can do. I'll try and go slowly with these so that everybody has time to be able to do these. Number one thing is a profile picture. If you have a profile picture, you can receive up to 21 times more views on your profile than people who don't have a profile picture available. So if you don't have a profile picture, I'm sure all of you guys do, then I would say add one just now. This, just to give everybody a little bit of time to add a profile picture if they don't have one, is a picture of me in Mexico City on the cable car. And add a cover photo as well. I've got one related to my job, but you could create one on Canva, for example, for free. They have a template for creating LinkedIn banners. You could add in something like a QR code. You could add in a link to your profile. You could just add in, maybe if you're an artist, a really nice thing of a design that you've done, or a piece of art that you've done, an illustration or some of your work. This just helps make your profile look a little bit more professional. And it's really, really easy to make on Canva. You can just change that here. And add the photo. So next up is location. You will not show up on recruiters' results if you don't have a location listed on your LinkedIn profile. I'm not in Dundee right now. I'm in Mexico, but don't tell anybody. Put in your location if you don't have it there already. You can put it in a little bit more broadly, but don't put in Europe or England, for example. Try and be a little bit more focused, because recruiters will regularly check for location of candidates based off of where their studio is based, for example. So if you don't have that in there, get that in there now, and that means that you can be seen by recruiters. Next one, a nice little tip as well, is up in the top right hand corner here, you can see public profile and URL. Typically your LinkedIn profile, when you first make it, will come with a randomized URL that won't be based off of your name or anything like that. This won't help with any kind of traffic or anything like that, but what it will do is it will just make your LinkedIn link look a little bit more professional, both in the browser and also when you put that link into your profile, into your CV. So you can change this to anything that you want, basically, as long as it's not been used before. So I would suggest changing this to just your name, or change it to your first name and the fact that you're a designer or you're an artist or something like that. Keep it professional as best as possible. I understand that there are some people who, particularly those from underrepresented genders, who are uncomfortable about putting their full legal name on any kind of public profile. If you do this, this is completely fine. I would just suggest that you make it the same across everything, because people will look your name up. So if you want to make your last name something different, for example, I would just say just make sure that it's the same across all of your public profiles and links and things like that, just to make sure that you're easily searchable. So change your link to something like this. This is just my first initial, my middle name, and my surname, just because obviously my name was already taken. So these few things will already make your profile more navigable, more easily findable. Next up, we're going to go down to look at your actual job profile. These are the really simple things that you can do to kind of just make your profile more accessible. Let's look now at some of the other stuff that's going to make your profile more seen by recruiters. So the next thing I'm going to go down to is top skills. So when recruiters are searching for your profile, they're searching for keywords a lot of the time. They're searching for the industry, they're searching for the job role, and they're searching for keywords. And these top skills are invaluable in making sure that you turn up in certain results on people's profiles. So don't just think about things like, okay, game development. You need to be more specific than that. So is it, am I an environment artist that is really good at kit bashing? Am I a 3D character artist that's really good at doing a specific kind of 3D character? Is there a specific tool that I'm really good at using? Am I really good at specifically doing blockouts for level design? So think about the really specific skills, because when recruiters are looking for people, they're often looking for a specific set of skills. And this is essentially, the number of screws and nuts and bolts and pieces of wood that you would have on your instruction kit. This is the thing. Okay, does this person have all of these pieces or some of these pieces that I'm looking for? You can only add in 5 here, so be really specific about the ones that you think are most relevant to your job profile. I've put obviously in here business development, nonprofit leadership, strategic partnerships, service design, bid writing. These are things, there are many things that I do in my job, but these are things that the employers are looking for. I'm not looking for work right now, but I think it's important to show what some of those top valuable skills are to employers. And this is the sort of thing that people are searching for: business development, partnerships, bid writing. Think about key skills and key things that you're good at, that you want to make shine on your profile, because it's not just what people will see it when they look at it. You're more likely to show up if people are searching for those things. So hopefully everyone's had a little bit of time there to think about some of the things that they want to put in there. If they haven't done that already, this is being recorded and I'm going to send this whole guide to you afterwards. So if you haven't managed to fill that up, don't worry, you can do that later on. So that's top skills. Next up is experience. So a couple of things to recommend here before we get into the nitty gritty of actually putting your real experience in here, is your current position and 2 more ideally. If you have 3 or more things in your LinkedIn, you're much more likely to come up on a recruiter's profile. And the more experience you have in those roles, the more likely you are to come up as well. So somebody mentioned around putting in information about previous jobs. I don't think you need to put everything in here, but we'll cover kind of how to make your experience look more relevant in the jobs that you've previously done. Ultimately, studios are going to be more likely to hire somebody who's got 5 years of professional experience in anything or in a parallel industry than somebody who's coming directly out of university that's never worked before. Now, we'll touch later on why that's important, but I would suggest putting your work experience in here. It's good for employees to be able to see your journey. And then the details, we'll talk a little bit more in a second about what you should be putting in there in terms of those roles. I don't have all of my jobs in here, far from it. I just have the ones that are most relevant in some way to the work that I'm doing now. My LinkedIn profile would have around 25 jobs or something like that. And if I put everything in, and most of it would be completely useless. So if you don't have anything in here in terms of your work experience, I would suggest getting some work experience. I'm sure everybody here has had jobs or is working now. If you're not, don't be scared about, going into the world of work. All of these things are going to be useful for you. So work experience, just as a general tip, make sure you have, at least 2 or 3 roles in here, and you're obviously your most relevant ones at the top of this. And then finally, the last one is have at least 50 connections on LinkedIn. This is going to make you much more likely to show up in people's search results if you have at least 50 connections on your LinkedIn profile. If I'm assuming probably a lot of you may have that already. If not, here's a really easy way for us to do that right now. I've created a little spreadsheet here that when I can get the chat open, is a place for everybody to put in their LinkedIn profile. So if everybody just pops in their name and the link, which I'm sure everybody has open already now to their LinkedIn profile, at the end of this, you can connect with everybody who's in this workshop. I'll add mine in here as well. I'm sure Lauren will add hers in if you're not already connected with Lauren. And if you don't have 50 connections, you will by the end of this workshop. So hopefully something useful in there for everybody already. So I'll give everybody just a quick second to do that, to add in their information. Hopefully shouldn't take too long, and then we'll kick off with some of the kind of more meatier stuff of your LinkedIn profile. I hope this isn't too boring, guys. I've really tried to, I know this is kind of the boring part of applying for jobs, but I've tried to make it as practical and useful as possible for you, so you're not just listening to me talk about LinkedIn stuff. So hopefully this is all going down okay for you guys. I'll just give everyone another minute and then we'll move on. When we come to the end of this, if anyone has any kind of thoughts or feedback on this, how it could be better, what you liked, what you didn't like, that would be really good to hear, even if you just chuck it in as a note as we're going along, or just mention it at the end when we come to the questions. I want to make sure this is as useful for you guys as possible, and if they deliver this again, to make sure it can be better. So much appreciate the help. I'm going to move on now just because we've only got so much time and I want to try and get through as much as possible. So already your LinkedIn profiles, if you had anything to change there, are now more visible to recruiters, just in those kind of 5 minutes. If you'd already done all of that stuff that's on there, well done. That's great. Next up, we're going to look at our headline. So your headline is this section here. You only have a very few amount of characters, but this is one of the first things that people are going to see when they're looking at your profile. I'm not looking for work right now, so mine would probably be slightly different if I was. Rather than mentioning my employer, I might add in a couple more interesting words about my skills or the things that I do. But I think it tells pretty quickly who I am and what I can do, and kind of buffs up my profile a little bit. This is the first time I ever called myself award nominated. It doesn't feel totally comfortable to me, but you have to kind of like, you want to make yourself look good, right? So in there, you want to have kind of around 3 to 8 kind of keywords or phrases. These are going to help with the algorithm, with the recruiter search results as well. So things like, like aspiring game designer, aspiring artist, aspiring lighting artist, and a little bit more about your specific skills, aspiring lighting artist specializing in, 3D environments in this genre or in this style, for example. These things are going to really help because recruiters will be searching for people with experience in specific styles of games, specific engines, specific use of tools. I'm a 3D character artist that specializes in Maya and 3ds Max, for example. A really good way to find out what employers are looking for is to look for the keywords in job results. So jobs that you're applying for, look through those job descriptions and put those words in your profile. So if they're saying there's specific tools that you're looking for, you guys know, then make sure those are in your profile. Don't lie, because this stuff will become very clear when you get to an interview or to kind of a testing stage. So definitely don't lie, but just really kind of makes sure the stuff that you're best at shines through, and that'll make sure that you can connect with the employers who are the best for you. Hopefully everyone's had some time there to have a little bit of think about what to go in there. Next up is your about section. So this is a little bit further down. This is the section that I've highlighted just here. This helps you go into a little bit more detail about kind of who you are, what you do, and the stuff that you work on. This should only really be about kind of 3 sentences or so. It should talk about your experience, what you do, what you work for. As you can see here, mine says industry leader with 4 years experience as co-founder of successful games industry nonprofit Into Games. That says pretty much already in one half sentence what it is that I do. Heading up all partnership and business development strategy for the organization. Anyone who's read that sentence now knows exactly what I do and what I'm good at. Working with the UK's largest and most successful game studios, create meaningful change in the sector across the full game skills and careers pipeline, dedicated to making the world a fairer place for the most marginalized in our society. Something around that in 3 or 4 sentences that tells them a little bit about what you do, what you're good at, and what you're here for. Again, utilize the keywords and key skills and experiences that employers are looking for. And as I mentioned, job listings is a really good way to find those things out. So match those up with the skills that you guys are good at and make sure these are in your kind of about and headline section. As I said, it's not just for recruiters who are actively looking at your profile, it's ones who are trying to find you as well. So if you've got words they're looking for in any of these sections, they're more likely to come up in people's search results. Again, hopefully people have had a little bit of time there. I'm really sorry if it's not enough time for people to think about, but I just really want to make sure there's enough time to get through all of this. Interesting thing about aspiring from the headline, because it didn't look good, it's really personal preference around how you use your language. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting aspiring in there. I think you should be honest about your experience. There's a couple other things around that I'll come to in a second, but you should be honest about your experience. You could say recent graduate, you could say game designer looking for my first role, game designer looking for role. It's up to you, and it's about how you use the language. I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about using the word aspiring. I think the key thing is just about utilizing words that recruiters are looking for. That's the key thing. But interesting point there. I'm sorry if other people are making comments that I'm not seeing. I don't have the chat open, and I don't want to kind of get caught up answering questions rather than kind of get through the practical stuff. So we'll come to this stuff at the end. I just noticed that one there. So next up is your featured section. So this is a really nice way for anybody who's looking at your profile to see some of the top stuff that you're proud of. For example, a link to your portfolio should be in here. You can put a link to your CV as well, but I wouldn't recommend sharing like personal information like your location and your exact location and your phone number and your email address on there. So I wouldn't recommend putting in your CV. What I would recommend doing is things like a podcast that you've been on. You can see here, I just put this one in yesterday, is me on the Game Dev London podcast talking about getting into games. And this is an article that I wrote a few weeks ago for gamesindustry.biz about the games video game tax relief scheme. So this is like a couple bits of work that I'm proud of or that I've done that helps people kind of see the sort of stuff that I do outside of work and things that I'm proud of in work as well. I would recommend things like, I'm sure all the people here are pretty proactive. So if you've done things like write any blog posts, if you've done things like do any podcasts, if you've done any projects that are online, if you want to put up a game that you've made that's on itch.io, these are really, really great things to put up on your profile. As well as a link to your portfolio or website. We'll touch briefly on how to make one of those later and what to do. But if you have those things, those are things that are really good to put in there. Two is fine, just the 2 top things. It's just a really good opportunity to have links for people to look through your work. Portfolio is the top one that I would put in here. Link to your portfolio. So next one is honors and awards. This is a little further down, if I can find it. Honors and awards. So this is things outside of your core education that you've done extracurricularly that you think are important. And these will show up in the CV that we're going to create as well. Let me just have a look at the time. How are we doing? Okay, cool. We're okay. So I've put in here some of my key achievements that are outside of work. So I got nominated the last 2 years for the Diversity Star Award at the Developer Awards in Brighton, which is next week. So hopefully see some of you there. I'm sure I won't win this time round, but hey, some fingers crossed would be nice anyway. There's lots of really amazing people nominated this year round, but things like that, awards you've been nominated for, game jams that you've won, for example. Did you win a prize in a recent game jam? Is there anything at university that you did that you won an award for? Did you get access to a bursary? You can put on here, and I would really recommend putting on here that you're a limit break mentee. There's a lot of weight that comes with associating yourself with an organization like Limit Break. And if somebody's looking through your profile and sees that you're a Limit Break mentee, they're probably going to be more likely to get in touch with you because they know that you're getting support from, the games industry's best mentorship program. So if you don't have that you're a Limit Break mentee for 2023 on here, I would really recommend adding that as your one of these honors or awards. As you can see, I've got that I'm a BAFTA Connect member on here for the last 2 years. It's not an award, but it shows and added some kind of what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't know. It adds a little something nice to your profile anyway, that people can see that you're active outside of work, that you care about your career, and that you're actively developing your skills. So if, just to recover that, like if you've won any game jams, if you're won any prizes in university or in education, any particular awards that you're proud of that you've done that are extracurricular, try and keep them relevant to your role. But if you have any ones that you're really particularly proud of, you may be an athlete, for example, you may do some kind of extracurricular stuff outside that you're proud of. You may have even done a marathon, for example, or something like that. Any of these things that you're really particularly proud of, try and keep them relevant to the work if you can. But it's nice to have these things in here to show that you're a committed and caring and proactive person that does stuff outside of, kind of their typical work. Not that that should be expected, but it's a really nice thing if you are doing it. Even just being a mentee is, yes, it's supporting and helping you, but it's your personal time that you're giving up to improve your career. So it's something you should be really proud of, rather than seen as something that's like, I need help. Everybody needs help and support, and you're being proactive about getting that help and support and putting the work in to make the most of this relationship. So you should be really proud of that, and that should be on this part of the profile. So next up is your kind of the bulk of this work. Recommendations received and given, just to touch on that, isn't going to be relevant for your CV. These are things that are useful, but only when you're later in your career. Anybody who wants a reference for you can get that reference. They don't need to see it here. So don't worry too much about recommendations received and given. By all means, do give them to people. I've certainly given quite a lot, but these are a nice to have. They're not a need to have. So next up, we're going to get kind of into the meat of your CV. So this CV that you're creating is going to be built from this. There's going to be maybe a couple of changes and things that you need to make, but the reason I'm getting us to do it through this, it's 2 for 1. You get also a really amazing updated LinkedIn profile, and you can use this every time you want to update your CV, and you get a CV out of it as well. So I would get into a habit of when you want to update your CV with more experience, update your LinkedIn first, because then you can showcase it, you can share that information, and you've got an active live profile online that you can use to access your CV at any time. So I just think it's the best way to be able to do that. And I'll show you in a second if you do want to make any edits and things, you don't quite like the format of what LinkedIn's done, you can do all of that stuff too. So don't worry about that. So I think this is just the best way. The reasons why, the reasons kind of aforementioned already, but another few things, because there's lots of pitfalls and things that people fall into when making their CV that I think people kind of get a little bit carried away with templates and designs, and LinkedIn keeps it really, really simple. So just some things to avoid before we kind of go into the experience is generally graphics and images. You don't need a picture of yourself on your CV. And I would avoid just generally sharing such personal information about yourself, like things like picturing who you are, and share that information sparingly. A relevant work experience is another one. So somebody touched on what work experience should I have in here. In your LinkedIn profile, you should have anything at all that you think is relevant. If you've only had one job, I would put that job in there. And we'll talk in a second about what information should be in the body of that. But any relevant work experience should be in there. If you've worked at Tesco for the last 4 years and you're just about to graduate and you're looking for your first job, put that you've worked in Tesco for 4 years. That's your work experience. And it showed that not only did you commit to a full-time university degree, but that you committed to working on the side as well. And we can talk in a second about what should go in the description there. So, put your work experience in here, just use it sparingly in your CV. That's the thing that I would add. Irrelevant personal information and hobbies. You don't need to put that in your CV. I would recommend not putting that in your CV. As you see on the instruction guide for the Billy bookcase, there's no flowery or superfluous language in that. It just basically gets the job done immediately. Your cover letter is your opportunity to be able to tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you enjoy. Another thing that I always see in CVs, people have these little bar charts where they have the level of ability of a certain skill that they have. You don't need those, guys. There's no metric that you're measuring that by, and the recruiter is going to know that. And even if there is a metric you're measuring by, the recruiter is not going to understand what that metric is. And also a lot of the time, game studios use like heavily encrypted email soft systems. That means that a lot of the time graphics and images do not even make it through their firewall. So keeping that stuff to an absolute minimum is my recommendation. So you just list your top skills, and this LinkedIn CV will help you do that. Again, superfluous language, just generally, just be really kind of to the point about what it is that you do and what you're good at. And then for education, keep out your kind of irrelevant education. They don't, unless you think it's super relevant to the role that you're applying for, they don't need to see your GCSE results, for example. The fact that you've done a university degree or you're self-taught and you can talk very confidently about the things that you've learned and the things that you're good at, that's what they care about. They're not going to be worried about your GCSE results. So you can keep that information out. University, of course, is really important. Apprenticeships, if you've done apprenticeships, really important. Any relevant short courses, paid or free, are really relevant to this as well, especially if they're ones that come from a notable organization, for example. All of these things are really useful, relevant to the jobs that you're applying for. You don't need your GCSEs or A levels or whatever in there, unless you feel that they are very, very relevant to the jobs that you're applying for. Next up, let's go on to experience. That's the section I have open here right now. And I see loads of comments in the chat, so I'm just going to have a little quickly and just to see if there's not anything super important. So I can see some stuff specifically around whether it should be just games. No, definitely not. Showcase your experience and skills in other sectors and other industries. Performing arts and theatre is especially if it's in a producer doing something like project management, a producer is super relevant. Likely every single job that you've had is relevant in some way in soft and hard skills to the things that you want to do in the games industry. So when I talk about relevancy, what I really mean is recent, recent job experience. So you don't need to have in here, for example, like the local shop job that you had when you were 15 or 16. You don't need to have in, for example, like, a job that you did for 2 months and then got kicked out of because, they were making redundancies, or you got fired because you didn't show up. Don't keep that stuff in there. Be honest, but don't be that honest. Don't put in jobs you've been let go from. So when I mean relevant, I mean recent, the most recent job experience that you've got. Any sector is fine. Absolutely any job. It shows a commitment to having worked before. If you've had a job or at university, before university, whilst being self-taught, you are much more likely to get a job than somebody who's managed to go all the way through university without never having worked a day in their life. And those people will have a shock when they go into the world of work. I'm not sure what everybody's situation is here, but any work experience that you can get is good. Getting yourself into the world of work, even if it's just retail or hospitality, is really useful. All of those jobs that I've done in the past, the 25 other odd jobs, have all helped me in some way to get me where I am. So I'm going to come back to this in a bit, but I just want people to be confident that they can put in the experience here that's outside of games before we move on, because this is kind of the next section. So experience, some tips on this. I would suggest just kind of working on this as I'm talking through it, because I don't want to kind of sit here for too long kind of in silence or anything like that while people are working on it. I know people probably have their CV already at hand, so hopefully people will be able to copy and paste some information from that over to this. Or really, I think probably what's more likely, this is going to be about people cutting down information that's probably on here. So first off, bullet points are your best friend. They're your best friend in all types of copywriting, whether it's applying for a job, telling people information that's important, writing emails, updating people. Bullet points are your best friend. They're a really, really good tool for forcing you to be able to say the most important information as concisely as possible and making it easy to read and accessible for people. So in your experience, I would recommend your most recent experience. I would have a couple of sentences about what your most recent job is, plus maybe 3 to 4 bullet points. So this is my most recent job. I've been working at nDreams for 4 years. That's split up into 2 separate roles. For my CV, I would actually probably just put it into one role, but I think it's nice for people to see, at least on my public LinkedIn profile, there's been some kind of journey there, or different things that I've worked on. So your most recent role, obviously, it's going to automatically put it into the top on LinkedIn. A couple of sentences or one sentence about what that job is and what the work that you're doing now, plus 3 or 4 kind of bullet points about your top achievements and the skills that you've learned. So you can see all of my ones here, kind of, successfully renewed 90% of sector partnerships for 3 consecutive years for 15 of the UK's largest game studios. That's an achievement to be really proud of. And if I were to go to apply for a job in business development or partnerships or strategies or working for a non-profit or fundraising, that tells that person straight away that not only can I develop partnerships, but I'm good at keeping them for a long time too. You can read obviously my other ones there. They won't be super relevant to you guys, but it gives you an idea that, like, even for me, having been in the industry for 4 or 5 years now, that I still keep the information to an absolute minimum. So whatever your most recent job experience was, I would recommend putting that in there, putting the number of years that you've worked in that role, 1 sentence, 2 if you really have to, on what that work is, and then 3 to 4, no more than 4 bullet points on your top achievements for those roles. So you may have to cut some information down, you may have to add some. I would recommend kind of doing that now. I'm going to talk about some other kind of little tips and things as I'm going, but just to make sure that we can kind of keep this moving, I would recommend, like, whilst I'm talking, just kind of working away on this, having it open in another in a separate tab. I'll just have a quick look at the chat and see if there's any jobs we had to leave for health reasons that go from a recent. Yes, I definitely. I guess I was just talking about, like a job that you might have done when you were 15, 16 and didn't work out or whatever like that. I think, all recent job experience is relevant. So I don't want anyone to feel like if they were let go for health reasons or any difficult things like that, that they can't put that in there. In terms of the person's question around like short contract jobs, putting them all separately or putting freelance customer assistant, I would leave that call up to you. I think it depends on how relevant those things were. If some of them were longer, I would recommend putting those as kind of working for them, and you can talk a little bit more in detail about specifically what those projects were and what you did. Whereas if you just kind of put freelance costume assistant, then it doesn't give you as much space to be able to talk about those things. The massive gap that you have in your LinkedIn since 2019, no, I don't think that's important. I would just put in things like your about section is a really good opportunity to put that that you took some break from your career for certain for whatever reasons, and that you're looking to get back into the industry again. Generally, the industry is very inclusive around things like mental health and neurodivergence, disability, health concerns, and things like that. So I think just being honest about it is the best policy. I think just having your really relevant experience and your top skills in there is the most important thing. Industry in terms of entry positions for older people, it's a mixed bag. A lot of the time folks are looking for people who are recently graduated, but that culture is changing. If you can really make sure that, like, even though it's your first job in the games industry, that you're clearly much longer and more diverse previous work experience is relevant to games, then that's really, really, really useful. So the industry is definitely open to hiring people who are older. I just think just make sure you show how all of your previous work experience is relevant to you finding your first job in the games industry. No worries, Lucy, and good luck. So in terms of the skills, Amanda, it's a really good question. So putting things like Autodesk Maya, I think, is really, really good. People are going to be searching for the tools that the people are proficient in. So if you think that the tool is really useful and specific to the role, again, I would recommend checking such studios' job descriptions. Is a really good way to understand what the keywords are. So when it says required for this job, if it says proficiency in Autodesk Maya, then you should put that. I mentioned first games job or just right junior. I wouldn't get too caught up around the terminology of these things. I think the things that are really, really important is just to make sure that you're just utilizing the keywords that are in job descriptions. Don't worry too much about the words that are outside of that. This is about making your profile searchable by recruiters. So putting in the skills that you're really proficient in, that employers are looking for, is the best thing to do. So don't worry if it's everybody here, it's your first job. Don't worry about being honest about that. They're going to see very quickly from your LinkedIn profile that it's your first job. So it's not like you need to hide anything. Aspiring is fine to write because aspiring to work in the games industry is fine because your LinkedIn profile says in black and white that you've never worked in the games industry before. So I wouldn't worry about those sorts of things. So hopefully everybody's kind of got started on that and is making some progress on that. Apologies if there's not enough time. But as you can see, we're kind of already running out of time. So another kind of just a few don't do's that kind of cover some of these other questions. Your college or university project is not an indie studio. Recruiters and employers can see that you're a graduate and a new recruit, so just be honest about your experience. Utilize the education page, which we're going to come on to in a second, to show all of the top things that you've done. And for your education space, by the way, guys, do exactly the same thing. Obviously, if you're just coming out of university, this is going to be super, super relevant. And you're going to have to think about this in the same way as your experience. It's really less relevant for me, hence the reason why there's just a couple of kind of sentences about the things that I've done here rather than bullet points going into details, because it's not the thing that's going to get me a job now. It's the stuff that I've got at the top of my job experience. But for you guys, if you're just coming out of university or an apprenticeship, you've just done a course, for example, a mastered course, if any of you guys are on the mastered program, this is your opportunity to showcase your top skills. This is where you should be talking about major projects and things that you've done. Don't put indie studio that you made up in university as work experience, because it will become very clear very quickly that that's not the case. So I would recommend putting that stuff in your education. Yes, that's good. Yeah, put in that you're going to develop Brighton. That's good. People put it on their Twitter profiles as well. My friends and I have a studio name we go under for our game jams, and I have that in my experience. I'm assuming that's a good idea. It's a difficult one because this is really your experience, is your professional experience. This is your job experience. So game jams, I wouldn't come under that. So I will leave that one up to you, but I would say, that's going to be your most recent and top job experience, and the recruiter is going to look at that and go, that's just something they do for game jams. I wouldn't recommend it. There are other places that you can put that. If you want to leave it in there, that's fine, but I would recommend in your CV making that very clear that that's not professional experience, and that you and your friends have an indie studio, that you regularly do game jams, and talk about the key skills and the things that you've learned in that game jams, and potentially any awards that you've won, and make that separate from your professional experience, because they are different. I just don't want you guys it to look like you're lying about your experience. I know, guys, you're trying to fit everything in one page. Harder the game jam and job experience. I'll show you some kind of tricks and things of what to do on how to do that. personal projects through self-teaching since university. What are the best way of posting on LinkedIn? So you can put that in your about section. You can put that in your top skills. You can put that in your experience, but just make it really, really, really clear. You can put in honors and awards that you've joined all of these top game jams. Just make it clear somewhere, and just make sure that it's not listed as professional experience as a job. So I would recommend doing it that way. So I'm going to kind of move on from the questions so we can get to kind of the next stage. Education, as I said, think of it in the exact same way as you think of your work experience. 1 sentence, 2 sentences about what you did, and some bullet points about the key things that you learned. Things that employers are going to want to see in this is finished projects, finished team projects, working to deadlines, key tools and skills that you learned during your time at university or in education that employers are looking for, all of those sorts of things. And again, utilize the keywords that are in job descriptions on studios' websites to understand the best things to put in here, is my recommendation. Now I'm going to show you guys how you can turn this into your CV. So if from here you scroll down a little bit, there's a section here that says more. If you click on more, you will see a section that says build a resume. A resume is obviously the American word for CV. You can see there's a few that I've created here in the past, and I'm going to go create from profile. Type in the job title. So for this one, put in the job title that you're aspiring for. I'll put in my current job title. So this would be for you guys, game designer, 3D artist, whatever, and pop that in here. And now you'll see something that looks very similar to your LinkedIn profile, but just focusing on the key kind of information that you've put in here. So this has your summary, it has your top information at the top, your email address, the link to your LinkedIn profile. I know I said putting your portfolio link in there, but we'll do that afterwards. A summary about who you are, experience. So you can, through this, delete and add things to your liking, and that won't affect your LinkedIn profile. So if there's information that you've got on your job experience that you think is relevant to have in your LinkedIn profile, but isn't relevant to have in your CV, then you can put that information in there. So for me, for example, I don't really need to have this role here in my CV, so I can delete that. That won't delete it from my profile, but it will delete it from the CV that I'm building. I can also take this job out as well, and I can put that out of my CV too. That won't affect your public profile in any way. As well as that, depending on what I'm applying for, like I don't really need to have like one of these education things in here, for example, or maybe I can remove the honors and awards. I'll leave it up to you guys. So you can have some difference between your LinkedIn profile and your CV, and this tool gives you a really amazing way to be able to work that information out. As you can see on the right hand side as well, that actually there is some help there that they can give you in terms of resume insights. So for the desired job title of head of partnerships, there's some suggested keywords that they've put in here. So strategic partnerships, digital marketing, new business development. So I'm not sure why those things haven't come up, but they obviously are in my CV already, at least most of them are. So it should give you some really good ideas already. All of these you'll be able to find in the job profiles, but maybe there'll be some ones that LinkedIn will find otherwise. Definitely listen to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the tool for recruiters to use to get people hired, and it's what the Microsoft want LinkedIn using to do. It's where all the traffic is coming from, is around hiring. So they want you to get a job, and they want you to get a job through LinkedIn. So they want to help you make your profile as visible as possible. So once you're happy with that, if you feel like you removed all of the relevant experience that's not relevant to your job or stuff that you don't want to be in there, the other thing that I forgot to mention here is licenses and certifications. So if you've done any kind of like specific training around Unreal Engine or Maya or Unity, for example, you can add these into your profile as well. I would just make sure that they're, accredited and ones that people are going to know about. So you can add those into your section as well. I don't have any of those, so I don't need to add them. So once you've done that, what you'll be able to do is download as PDF. I know PDFs are an absolute nightmare to work with. but this gives us a really good start. So we've downloaded our PDF. I'm just going to show you what that looks like now. Let's open that up. So you can see here my resume that LinkedIn has built. It's currently sitting on 2 pages. But as you can see, it's really to the point. It's really, really clear. It's got all the important information at the top. It's got nice bullet points, and I think it shows off really well all of your experience. This really is pretty much what your thing should look like. So if everybody's got a Google Drive folder open, the thing that I would recommend doing is if you jump onto Google Drive, you can immediately upload that PDF onto your Google Drive. Once you've done that, you can open it with Google Docs. That now makes it an editable, more accessible document that you can get a little bit more hands-on with. So I realized we're already at the hour and there's so many things that I wanted to go through. What I would suggest that people do is that they upload that resume to that CV to Google Drive and open it up into a Google Doc. So this is what it looks like as a Google document. There's some formatting things that maybe I would want to change, but we've got a really good start here. For all of the most important information from our job profile is into a document. And with a little editing, some changes here and there, this is what mine looks like. Now, one single page, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. One single page, all of my most important and relevant experiences in there, all of my skills, all of the awards and honors and things I'm proud of, all in one single page of a CV. And this is covering, you know, essentially we're going through all the way from university. You know, this is covering 10 years of my professional and learning experience, and it's on one single page. You don't need to have Megan O'Connell, so you don't need to have everything in here, just your most relevant experience. If you're somebody who is, you know, is in the 30s or 40s, who's got a lot of work experience and they want to make sure that is in there to show their professional career, or if, for example, like 10 years in the past, you did a role that you think is really relevant to this, I would just reduce the amount of bullet points that you have and reduce the amount of stuff in there so that you can get more of your relevant job experience rather than go to, you know, more than 2 pages. So I really leave it up to you guys. I know there's a really kind of diverse age of ranges and experiences here. If you're fresh out of university, you've only had a couple of jobs before, there's no need for your CV to be any more than 1 page long. If you've got a big, long professional experience you're really proud of that you think is relevant to you getting into the games industry, I think it's okay to go to 2 pages, but just keep this same formatting idea and, you know, get as much information in as I have here on the 1 single page. Don't go any more than 2. Nobody needs to make their CV any longer than 2 pages. So it doesn't come up if junior environment artist doesn't come up, I would put just environment artist. Environment artist should come up. That's the job you're applying for. So yeah, I would just put environment artist. Okay, so once you've done a little bit of editing, some changes, some recommendations here is to chuck your contact details into the header. And if you go into the header and click different first page, it'll make sure that only appears on the top page of the CV rather than both sides. Move things up a little bit. You can change the size of the text. Don't make it unreadable, of course. Do things like bring. I know in the original CV, it has things like these things separate, like your experience, name of employer and time. You can move those into the same line just to make things a little bit clearer. You can change slightly the size of the text to make things fit a little bit better. Use your own discretion, guys. I know a person had a thing around like whether they can use colors and graphics. Nothing wrong with using colors at all. I'll leave that up to you, but just keep it really, really simple. Your CV does not need to do any more than mine is doing here right now. And the good thing with the LinkedIn one is it adds little images of the logos of the places that you've worked or that you've studied, which I think is a nice little design touch that doesn't take away from making it accessible and readable, but it adds just a nice little extra kind of touch to it that you won't see in a lot of people's CVs. So any kind of design elements that you add, just keep them really, 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 really simple and just make it as accessible as possible. That people are looking for Yeah, CV's 5 pages long. Well, academics, and no offense, Christopher, they do love to talk, and show how experienced they are. So that doesn't surprise me. And in terms of volunteer page and volunteer experience, that's a really good point. Volunteering is really important. If there's stuff that you're really, really proud of, do put it in there. Just try and keep it relevant if you can. So if you volunteered at a local school to help them learn about how to make games, definitely have that in there. Definitely have that in there for sure. If, for example, you volunteer and are really proud of work that you've done at a local homeless shelter, keep that in there. That's important and relevant experience. That's showing how much you care about doing stuff outside of work. It shows you're a good, decent person too. You care about making the world a better place. So if you've got volunteer experience that you're really proud of, or you've got volunteer experience that you think is relevant to the jobs that you're applying for, keep it in there, but just keep it simple. You don't need to go into huge amounts of detail about what it is that you do. I'm just seeing if there's any other kind of comments here. So working with university societies, put that in kind of the honors and awards. That goes really well in this section here. So you could put, like, chair of the game design society at university, for example. That's really good in the honors and awards section, and then that comes up on your public profile on LinkedIn as well. So I would put that in there. So just to go on, I don't think we're going to have time, if we're going to get questions at the end, to do the cover letter. So I'm just going to talk through that, and I'll share it with you guys afterwards. And one of the things I really wanted to do here was to do some little breakout rooms, and for people to kind of give some kind of feedback around grammar and things like that on their LinkedIn profiles. We're not going to have time to do that. So I've already shared the spreadsheet with you that everybody now has their LinkedIn profiles in. And have added, some people have already added their CV links to and portfolio sites. That's amazing. That's brilliant. And their Discord usernames. So what I would suggest is, after this session, I'll send out an email with links to all of this stuff that you guys can access. Is somebody to kind of take the initiative to maybe set up another little session of breakout rooms, for people to be able to go just in twos, share their CVs with each other, and just do some little kind of grammatical checks. Don't be super critical around people's CVs, but I think it's really good to be confident about sharing your CV with other people. If you're feeling a little bit anxious right now about the process or the idea of sharing your CV with a peer, then this is a really, really good way, and a really safe and inclusive space to build that confidence to share it. You should be confident of your CV. You should be confident sharing it with people. And your peers are there only to read through it and to say, oh, maybe you could change this word here, maybe you could cut this out here, or I think you could really highlight this better, or are there any things missing from this that you think are important? In any sort of writing or any sort of creative work or anything that you're doing, there is completely and utterly invaluable to share that work with other people, both in your game making, professional, personal, whatever. They will notice stuff and things that you don't, and being more confident and comfortable about sharing your process and sharing your work is only going to be a good thing, both personally and professionally, when you go into the games industry. So anybody who hasn't added that information in there now, I would recommend at the end of the session or afterwards, adding in your profiles, connect with everybody, add in a link to your CV, add in a link to your portfolio site, and add in a link to your Discord username. I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to touch on cover letters and talk through what one of those should look like. We won't have time to build one, but hopefully I'll give you all the tools that you'll need to be able to do that in your own time. So hopefully that was useful. Please do just give me a thumbs up, or let me know afterwards if this has helped people, and that there's stuff in here that people didn't know and is useful for them for building their CV. And if everybody knew everything that was in here already, then well done, you're amazing. That's really impressive. So going back now to the next stage is cover letter. So as I said, we're going to build a cover letter for a June job together, and annoyingly we're not going to have time to do that, but I am going to give you some top tips and also a template that I'll share with you guys afterwards that you can use to build out your perfect cover letter. So your cover letter is my example here. I'll zoom in a little bit so people can see. This is super simple. There doesn't need to be loads of information in your cover letter. It's your opportunity to show a little bit of who you are, that you can't do in your CV. There's going to be some hard truths about these cover letters that you may not like, but hopefully people will just understand why kind of how important these things are. So some tips around cover letters. Always get into a habit, guys, of putting your personal details and important links in very accessible places right at the top of all documentation that you share with employers. They want to see immediately the link to your itch.io page, the link to a playable game, the link to your ArtStation, the link to your portfolio or to your GitHub. These are the things that people are going to want to see straight away. They want to know your name, they want to know where you're based, they want to know your email address and your phone number if they can access it as well, if you have one. And then also, going into the cover letter, make it personal if you can. People are reading a million of these. So if somebody gets mentioned by name, or if somebody gets mentioned in a nice way to the department that they're working for, or even to the studio, it does help. It does help. So if you know the people of the name in the department that you're applying for, do chuck their names in there. Next up, first sentence. Get them excited about the potential opportunity to speak with you. Who are you? Why are you great? Why should they want to read on? This is just an introductory sentence to say a little bit about who you are and to be personal. Next up, mention the company by name, mention a nice bunch of reasons why you specifically want to work for them. Like, just saying that you like their games isn't enough. You need to think about what it is you like about them and why you're excited about the opportunity to work for them. As a really good example for a designer, talk about a specific thing within one of their games that gets you really excited about the opportunity to work with them. What's something that they did that you really liked, or what's a style of game that they're making that you would love to get involved in? I also love making roguelites, or something like that. Think about something that's going to hook the people who are reading that to make you go, okay, I want to work. If you're thinking like an operations role or something like that, that's a little bit different, that's outside of core development, then be thinking about, you want to work for your company because it's clear that you guys have amazing policies around supporting those from marginalized groups, for example. I'm really impressed by your guys' open transparency about making industry a more diverse place, or I'm really impressed by the way that you guys talk about yourselves as an organization and your goals and your values. These things are all really important. You will need to do this for every job that you apply for. I'm sorry, guys. You can go ahead and apply for jobs and not put in a cover letter, or put in a generic one that doesn't mention the company's name or the things you want to do. But if you're personalizing anything per job, it should be this. It's your opportunity to show them who you are and to show them why you're the person for the job. It doesn't need to be long. Look, it shouldn't be any longer than this template that I've made here. So next up, you should be saying, like, now, why should the hiring manager finish off this cover letter, grab your CV and email you asking to speak with them? Let this person know why you're the perfect person for this job. Don't lie, just remember the bookcase. Tell your story. What are the reasons why they should pick you? It doesn't have to be much, but just think about the couple of sentences that make you perfect for the job. What is it that you do? What is it about yourself? Why do you think you're the perfect person for that company and for that role specifically? And now back that up with 1, 2, or 3 awesome measurable things that prove that you're not talking out your ass. I did this, I did that, I owned this. I created this incredible dynamic lighting environment in my university degree based off of one of your games, or I love creating roguelike games, one in a game jam for a roguelike that me and my friends created. And it's been my dream to work for an organization where I can make games like that too. Think about real measurable, actionable things that they're going to go, okay, right. This person just doesn't just want to work in games, doesn't just like our studio. Like, they actually know what we want and they have the skills that we need. Finally, a call to action in emails, cover letters, anything like that. A call to action or a question at the end have much higher response rates. So something like, don't say this exactly, like what you see, check out my portfolio, read my CV, message me on LinkedIn. Just something that's a call to action that says, would love to speak more. Feel free to message me on LinkedIn and we can have a conversation, or add me on LinkedIn with a little link to the LinkedIn page, or please check out my portfolio. I especially recommend checking out the project at the top of my portfolio, which I think you guys will really like. Something like that is really good. If you're applying for a community manager position, why not check out my the Discord server that I'm running and join and see the panel that we're going to be running next week, for example, something like that. A call to action. Finally, last sentence, just be nice. Recruiters read 1,000,001 of these every single day. So something sweet and kind that breaks through the monotony. And sorry, it will be monotonous reading through your job profile for a recruiter. So something that makes them go, oh, that was nice, or oh, that was sweet, or oh, okay, I feel like I got to know that person a little bit better. Will really help distinguish and differentiate your cover letter from somebody else's. So just be personal, keep it professional, let them know a little bit about who you are, why you're perfect at the job, show that you've done your homework. There will be lots and lots of people who are applying for these who are not writing cover letters, and there will be people who are writing cover letters that are generic, or there'll be people who don't do research about the company that they're working for. So if you can do all of those things, you're ahead of at least 50% of the people who are applying for the same jobs as you are. So when you think of it that way, these are really simple things that you can do that are going to give you a huge, huge step ahead in the game. As I said, I'll share this template with you afterwards if it's useful to you, so that you can utilize this for creating your own cover letters. If you do get around, guys, as a session to kind of doing a little breakout room where you can talk about these, then this one especially I would really recommend sharing with a peer, because you're using a little bit more kind of flowery and emotional language in here. So I would really recommend kind of sharing this. You don't need to share everyone but that you make, but just getting things like this in front of people is just a really good habit to get into. So that's your cover letter. Again, hopefully some really useful advice in there for you guys. Apologies if this has all been said before. I really apologize. I'm going to go back to the presentation now, and I'm just going to talk really quickly about some advice from some of the other sections of that kind of wheel of kind of games career journey stuff. And then hopefully we'll still have about 10 minutes at the end for some questions about stuff that you might have. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So we didn't have time to obviously build the cover letter, but hopefully you guys have everything you need to build a great one of those. Sorry, there's a plane going overhead. Sorry if you can hear that. So portfolios. I could spend hours talking about portfolios and demos because they're so differentiated based off of the role that you're applying for. It's different for every single discipline and the sorts of things that you should have in there. I've added some really great examples of portfolios of people currently working in the games industry that you can check out that cover art, design, and code, that will give you an idea. I'll share those afterwards so you can take a look at those. But in terms of the things that your portfolio, your demo reel, your body of work, your website should have in, use only your best and most relevant work. Your most recent work should tick both of those boxes. Your best and most relevant work for the jobs that you're applying for should be information that's seen right at the top of your portfolio. Also, this covers any discipline. Show how you solved problems and what work was yours if they were team projects. So whether it's your GitHub profile, your ArtStation, your itch.io, add in how you solve problems and talk about the design process. Having a piece of art in there that you've done is all well and good, or a piece of code that you've worked on is all well and good. I'm sure you're all very aware of the power of AI to create things like this now. So you need to add some more detail and some personality, and showing problem solving is something that recruiters and hiring managers are always telling me and always telling people that they want to see. They want to see how you solve the problem. So if you've done a game jam and there's an interesting mechanic that's in that game, you should talk about how you solved that and how you project managed that over 48 hours or a week, for example. That shows that you can be critical of your own work. It shows that you can think about how to improve, and it shows that you can complete projects and evaluate them, which is a huge part of working in games. Make sure you're searchable online. So this first one here, for example, Shailene is amazing. She's a freelance 3D character artist. But if I go onto Google and I search her name, the first things that come up are her Instagram and her ArtStation. The number 2 thing here is her ArtStation. So make sure that you're searchable online. It doesn't always make a difference, but it can do. It can do. So if you've got things that you're proud of, make sure that your name's at the top of those and they're searchable online. Next up, always make sure your portfolio is at the very top of all documents and easily accessible, whether it's an itch.io profile, an ArtStation, a GitHub. Make sure that's the first thing, because it's the thing that employers are going to click on. straight away. And it's not just for dev roles. You can make a portfolio for other roles too. You can have a website if you're a community manager or a aspiring marketeer. You can talk about personal projects that you've done. If you're interested in operations or HR, you can talk about personal things you've done, articles that you've written talking about things that you're passionate about. So you can get a portfolio for any role. It doesn't have to be a core design or development role. So going back to this kind of wheel again, we've covered build, update your job profile. There's 3 other ones here that I'm going to talk about really quickly. And I'll share this information with you guys afterwards as well. Number 2, flex your creative muscles and develop new skills. This one is so important for your own personal and professional development. Like, time to get interested and excited about learning through new things. So number 1, make things and finish them. Hiring managers, recruiters, videos, they don't want to just see stuff that you've made. They want to see stuff you've finished. So if you've made a game, publish it on itch.io, put it up there live, make it playable in browser. That's going to impress recruiters when they see that. Join game jams and competitions. I'm sure many of you know how to find these game jams. Art one that I really recommend is Moon Colony. They give a load of support to people who join their monthly art prompts. Number 3, this is just a general thing to think about, is just cultivate a love of learning for your own personal and professional development. Enjoy the process of learning new things, getting out your comfort zone, developing new skills. The number 1 way to do this is regularity. Not using kind of momentary fluxes and flurries of inspiration as a way to kind of like develop new skills. Just get into a regular habit of doing things every day if you can, even just 5 minutes. Just say, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes today of drawing. I'm going to do 5 minutes of writing today. I'm going to do 5 minutes of reading about a job that I want to apply for. I guarantee it will always end up being more than 5 minutes. And that's a choice that you've made. So that time is even more valuable and important and special to you because you've chosen to kind of give that time to something you care about. This is just a recommendation. There's an amazing book called The Artist's Way that talks about how to unlock your creative potential. It's a really, really amazing book, no matter the discipline or thing that you're interested in, to help you understand that you are an artist. No matter if you're professional or not, it's not important. And it really helps you create some kind of regularity to your creative practice. So I really recommend it. Get inspired by everything, not just games. All of your experience is relevant and all of your interests are relevant in some way. The best level designers are interested in architecture. The best sound designers are interested in Foley from movies. You know, the best project managers and producers understand the processes of other creative industries and out with. So get inspired by everything, you know, not just games. You know, if you're a level designer or an environment artist, you'll learn a lot by going to a museum and looking around how the museum is designed, how people walk through it, how exhibits are made. So take the opportunities to get inspired by new things outside of games. Notebooks and note apps. I'm really running out of time here. Also really super important. Just to write down your ideas. Take opportunities to try new things, explore new areas, and also I'll send this link afterwards. nDreams run really, really amazing short courses called sprints that are run by leading industry experts. So we just ran one with Peter Field, who, if you don't know him, he's a lead designer at Media Molecule, and he ran a live course run by him around level design. So there's really good ways to kind of flex your skills, work with peers, and build a new portfolio piece. 3, I'm going to do these really quickly because I want to just leave 5 minutes for questions. Share your work with others. Discord groups, use into games, work with indies. nDreams has a great one. Moon Colony again. Any Discord groups that you can find. I'm not sure if Limit Break has one. I'm sure you guys do. Get into a habit of sharing your work with other people. Discipline-specific forums and sites are great. Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. If you've got a great LinkedIn profile now, use it as an opportunity to share work that you've done and talk about the process of things that you've done. You'll be surprised how it comes back to you when you apply for jobs and they've recognized you or they've seen something that you posted online. Use your peers, mentors, and don't be afraid to ask for help, which leads on to the final one. Get feedback and make improvements. You guys have amazing mentors who are supporting you through the process of your career journey. You've got a great person that you can lean on in terms of getting feedback, making improvements, and learning all the time. Number 1 thing to remember, getting good feedback is about asking good questions. And this is the same for mentorship as well. Making the most of a mentorship relationship is about understanding the right questions to ask your mentor. It's not just, can you help me? It's, can you help me with this very specific thing that I know you're going to be able to help me with? And it's the same for feedback. So there's a very kind of like obtuse example. If I'm trying to create a amazing angel character design for a game, I'm not going to ask somebody which one they think is better. I'm going to ask them which one looks more angelic, which one looks holier, which one looks more like it would fit in a specific environment. So be really specific about the advice and the feedback that you're asking for, rather than just say, which one do you like better? Think about the things that you really want to know about a specific thing that you've made. You know, is the traversal of this area specific or accessible enough? Can you easily identify key things within this level and environment that I want people to walk through? Things like that. So really think about specific questions to get good feedback. Don't be afraid to reach out to other developers. Just again, be specific and be nice. People are much more likely to help you if they know what you want help with. So don't just say, can you help me? I want to be a level designer. Say, I'm a level designer. I've just done this recent piece of work and I'd really like some advice on how I can make this specific part of it more accessible or readable by the player. Implement the changes based on the feedback. That's what it's there for. So go back into your portfolio, update things based on feedback that you've got, and then re-upload it to your portfolio. That's what your feedback's for. And yeah, as I said, always update your portfolio with your very best work. So some final kind of job hunting tips. Other work experience is good. These are just some of the jobs that I've had before, everything from a bartender to a bricklayer to a toilet cleaner. All of those, probably apart from the toilet cleaner, gave me valuable skills that helped me get the job that I have today, whether it's being more confident talking to people, whether it's copywriting, whether it's, you know, communicating, sharing ideas, working with new people, being uncomfortable in new environments. All of this work experience is good. So don't be afraid about applying for jobs outside of games to learn valuable experience that you'll use actually in games. Finally, know your worth. Don't accept lower than the average salary for your role. There's a game dev salary spreadsheet that you can find that will give you an idea of what that should be. And never, ever, 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 ever work for free, guys. If a studio is offering you work experience to do an internship for them and they're not paying you, you don't want to work for them. So do not work for free, guys. If something doesn't seem right, ask your mentor for advice. So if there's something in a contract and a job you're applying for that doesn't seem right, you're not confident about an employer, seek out help from your mentor or join the games union. That's exactly what they're there to do, is to support and make sure that you're treated fairly as a worker. Look out for employer red flags in job descriptions. You can very easily find lists of these online. These are things like talking about, you know, work hard, play hard, you know, ninjas, and all of these sorts of things. They're very easily discernible words that can often give you a pretty good idea about what a company's working culture is like. And also look for things like staff benefits and things like that as well. If you're unsure of something, challenge the employer and ask them questions. This is a really good opportunity because if they're a good employer, they'll be really thankful that you ask them probing questions about stuff that they care about, and it's going to give you a good chance, better chance of kind of getting hired by them. They'll remember you. And if they get really standoffish and defensive about the questions that you're asking, probably means you shouldn't be working for them. So challenge employers and ask them questions about things like employee safety, crunch, benefits, equality, diversity, and inclusion. And finally, rest up. Finding a job can be tough. That's okay. Utilize Safe in Our World. They're truly amazing. Find time for yourself. Look after your mind and body. Applying for a job is hard. You have to put a lot of yourself personally and professionally out there. Your peers and mentors are there to help you, and the support network that you built today from that spreadsheet are there and very powerful and there to support you. So last kind of thing at the end, remember these guys here, the bread CV and the deskless person. These people now work in the UK games industry and are very successful in it. So you will get there, even if you came from a person making a CD that was literally an image of a piece of bread with Comic Sans pasted over it. That person learned, that person got there eventually. This person is now at Mediatonic. They're now lead QA at Radical Forge. And Red is a lead producer at Rocksteady. So, you know, these people too managed to find their place in the games industry as well. So don't worry. That's it from me, guys.